¿Qué es un verbo? What's a verb? They are words that are used to express physical or mental actions, states of being, and occurrences. They're used to describe what the subject of a sentence is doing. Every sentence must have at least one verb. You can even have a sentence that consists only of a single verb. For example, a verb in the imperative form, corre, run. In this case, the subject is tú, you singular.
You, yes you, I'm telling you to run. No, seriously, run. Corre, grammar is coming. Ah!
But before you try to understand this example, let's see more basic information we need to know in order to use a verb properly. Let's begin with English. Verbs can be modified depending on subject, tense, mood, and voice. This is what we call conjugation. This also happens in Spanish. Verbs can change form depending on el sujeto, el tiempo verbal, el modo y la voz, creating what we call la conjugación. The subject, el sujeto. There are 6 subjects in both English and Spanish, depending on what person they are, first, second, or third person, and if they are singular or plural, whether they refer to one person or multiple people. I, yo, first person singular, you, tú, second person singular, he, she, it, él, ella, third person singular, we, nosotros or nosotras, first person plural, you, vosotros, vosotras, second person plural, and they, ellos, ellas, third person plural. Additionally, in Spanish, we have usted and ustedes, which equals tú and vosotros, but they are the formal version to address someone in a formal and polite way. In South America, these are commonly used, but in Spain, not as much. In Spain, these words make us feel old. And trust me, we don't like to feel old. Words have a lot of power. Use them wisely. Remember, even though usted is referring to a second person singular, you, and ustedes to a second person plural, you guys, you peeps, you lot, in Spanish we will be using the third person singular and third person plural version of the verb tense. This is to differentiate between speaking in a formal or in a casual way. Verbs and subjects must agree in number. If the subject is singular, the verb must also be in singular form. Likewise, if the subject is plural, the verb must also be in a plural form. This is called subject-verb agreement. For example, he eats, él come, correct. But he eats, él comen, incorrect. You need the S for the third person singular in English, and in Spanish, comen is for they eat, not he eats. They eat, ellos comen, correct. But they eats, ellos come, incorrect. The S is only for the third person singular in English, and in Spanish, come is for he, she, it, eats, not they eats. The tense, el tiempo. Verbs are also conjugated based on tense. There are 3 main tenses in both English and Spanish. We have past, an action has taken place, present, an action is taking place, and future, an action will take place. En español, el pasado, una acción ha tenido lugar, el presente, una acción está teniendo lugar, y el futuro, una acción tendrá lugar. Each tense has a simple, progressive, perfect, and perfect progressive aspect with its own rules for conjugation. The forms a verb can take in each aspect depends on the subject and on whether the verb is regular or irregular.
Correct. It's not just the Spanish verbs are too difficult. English verbs are also difficult. And I will show you a site that not many of you probably have seen before, or maybe not since school days. Let's see it with an example. I'm going to be using the verb to dance in the first person singular form when conjugated.
Let's begin with the simple form. In the past, I danced, yo bailé o bailaba. In the present, I dance, yo bailo. In the future, I will dance, yo bailaré. Progressive, past, I was dancing, yo estuve, estaba bailando. Present, I am dancing, yo estoy bailando. And future, I will be dancing, yo estaré bailando. The perfect one, in the past, I had danced, yo había bailado. Present, I have danced, yo he bailado. Future, I will have danced, yo habré bailado. Now the perfect progressive. Past, I had been dancing, yo había estado bailando. Present, I have been dancing, yo he estado bailando. And future, I will have been dancing, Yo habré estado bailando.
See, I told you to run, yet you're still in here. Brave. This is only the beginning.
Ugh, shut up already. Drama is needed, but so is grammar. Don't make me give you more verb tenses exams, por versus para exercises, indicative versus subjunctive exercises, and 300-word essays.
No, por favor, te lo suplico, no. Vale, me callo.
The mood, el modo. The mood of a verb indicates the tone and intention of a sentence. The three main grammatical moods for the verbs are indicative mood, el modo indicativo, the most common one. It's used to express a fact or objective ideas used for information. For example, Silvia come chocolate. Silvia eats chocolate. O la clase empieza a las 9. The class starts at 9. The subjunctive mood, el modo subjuntivo, one of the hardest parts to learn in the Spanish language, it's used to express wishes, probabilities, doubt, or hypothetical actions or situations. For example, si fuese o fuera rico, compraría una casa. If I were rich, I would buy a house.
Wait. Are you telling me that English also has a subjunctive mood?
Yes, of course, it's not used as much as in Spanish, and it's mostly outdated, but it's still used in certain occasions.
No puedo.
Imperative mood, el modo imperativo. It's used to express a command, a request, an order, but also for advice, please, and to give directions. For example, camina más rápido, walk faster, come y calla, eat and shut up, o gira a la derecha, turn right. Remember, indicative, subjunctive, and imperative moods. Indicativo, subjuntivo, e imperativo. Very important.
The voice, active or passive. La voz, activa o pasiva. An active sentence is one in which the subject performs the action. For example, mi hermano comió el chocolate. My brother ate the chocolate. A passive sentence is one in which the subject is acted upon. They are useful for emphasizing the outcome of an action rather than the action itself. For example, transforming the previous sentence into passive voice would be el chocolate fue comido por mi hermano. The chocolate was eaten by my brother.
So remember, subject, el sujeto, tense, el tiempo, mood, el modo, and voice, la voz. This is what we call conjugation, la conjugación, but we have more. The verboids, los verboides. I don't really use this name. I normally say las formas impersonales de los verbos, the impersonal forms of the verbs, because the verboids are the non-personal forms of the verb. They're not conjugated, and they can work as verbs or other types of words. They cannot complete an independent clause by themselves. They are verbs that are not finite.
Verboid? Verboid? Verboid. Verboide. Verboide. Verboid.
Let's meet these impersonal forms. I'm sure you know them. There's just 3. The infinitive, el infinitivo. This is the base form of the verb, normally seen with the word to before the base form. For example, to sing, to eat, to live. In Spanish, we have what we call las tres conjugaciones, the 3 conjugations. The verbs ending in AR, primera conjugación, first conjugation. The verbs ending in ER, segunda conjugación, second conjugation. And the verbs ending in IR, tercera conjugación, third conjugation. For example, cantar, comer, vivir. The gerund, el gerundio. These are the ing verbs. For example, singing, eating, living. In Spanish, we have the verbs ending in ando for the first conjugation, the verbs ending in AR, and the verbs ending in yendo for the second and third conjugation, the verbs ending in ER and IR. For example, cantando, comiendo, viviendo. The participle, el participio. In English, they are used in combination with the auxiliary verb to have. The participle ending will normally be formed by adding the suffix, the ending, ed. Although be careful with the irregulars, you have loads in English. For example, song, irregular, eaten, irregular, lived, regular. In Spanish, they are used in combination with the auxiliary verb haber, to have done something. And the participles are the verbs ending in ado for the first conjugation, the verbs ending in AR, and the verbs ending in ido for the second and third conjugation, the verbs ending in ER and IR. For example, cantado, comido, vivido. These three verboids are called the impersonal forms of the verbs because if you've been paying attention, these verbs on their own don't refer to any person. There's no way to know the subject. Remember that all the conjugated verbs will come from the base form, the infinitive, el infinitivo.
La raíz y la desinencia, the root and the suffix. In Spanish, all verbs are formed of two essential parts. La raíz, the root, it's the part that expresses the meaning of the verb. La desinencia, the suffix or the ending, it's the part that indicates the number and the grammatical person, the tense, the mood, and the verbal aspect. This is key for Spanish verbs. I will start using the infinitive, el infinitivo, as examples. Cantar, to sing. Cant is the root and ar the suffix. Comer, to eat. Com is the root and is a suffix. Vivir, to live. Viv is the root and ir is a suffix. As you can see, the suffix in the Spanish infinitive verbs are the third different conjugations. The verbs ending in AR, ER, IR. First, second, and third conjugation. This way we can differentiate between verbos regulares, regular verbs. They don't suffer any changes in the root when conjugated, and the endings are the same for each conjugation. All regular verbs ending in AR will have the same endings, the regular verbs ending in ER, and the regular verbs ending in IR will also have their own endings. For example, cantar, comer, vivir. These three verbs are regular in Spanish throughout all the different tenses. And verbos irregulares, irregular verbs, they do suffer changes when conjugated in the root, the suffix, or even in both. For example, ser, to be, and ir, to go. These two verbs are irregular in most cases. Transitive and intransitive verbs. Los verbos transitivos e intransitivos. A transitive verb, un verbo transitivo, is a verb that acts on someone or something. Therefore, needs a direct object, the thing being acted upon. We also say that the action of the verb is carried out by a subject agent over an object patient. That's why these verbs must have a direct object with them. For example, Silvia asks a question. Silvia pregunta una duda. Or, yo compré un libro. I bought a book. As you can see with these examples, the subject is carrying out the action over the direct object. An intransitive verb, verbo intransitivo, does not act on someone or something, therefore doesn't need a direct object. For example, Silvia duerme, Silvia sleeps. Yo camino, I walk. So we have the subject, el sujeto, the tense, el tiempo, the mood, el modo, the voice, la voz, the verboids or the non-personal forms of the verbs, los verboides o las formas impersonales de los verbos, the root and the suffix, la raíz y la desinencia, the transitive and intransitive verbs, los verbos transitivos e intransitivos, and there's more. But these are the main characteristics we need to understand for using the verbs correctly in Spanish. En resumen, to sum up, in Spanish, verbs are classified depending on three main categories. They are classified according to their form, su forma, whether they are regulares or irregulares, regular or irregular. According to their suffix, their ending, su terminación. We have first conjugation, verbs ending in AR, second conjugation, verbs ending in ER, and the third conjugation, verbs ending in IR. And according to their transitivity, su transitividad, whether they are transitive or intransitive verbs, verbos transitivos o intransitivos. So for future references, whenever I say things like you need to use the infinitive in that structure, I'm referring to the basic form of the verb ending in AR, ER, or IR. When I say conjugate the verb comer, to eat, for the first person singular in present simple, it would be yo como.
I eat. Watch this video as much as you need to try to get used to these names. You don't have to memorize them, but it will definitely help when trying to understand harder Spanish grammar, to at least understand the basic concepts related to what a verb is. Next week, I will upload an exercise so you can practice what you've learned in this video, and I will also upload the answers so you can correct yourself. If you have any questions, let me know and I will try to answer them as best as I can. Muchas gracias y espero que te haya gustado este video. Thank you so much and I hope you have enjoyed this video. Hasta la próxima. See you next time.
Hasta la próxima. Espero que hayáis sufrido tanto como yo.
Finite.